2, David Kyle, K-Bear 101, and that drummer who stole money from me. Chapter 1. To see the truer shadow, one must burn the proper flame. Sir Joseph Swan, Corollaries of Light and Dark, a primer for Thanatists. Most of us have a place we run to when it all goes to hell. For me, it was the Iron Horse. And tonight I needed someplace to run to, someplace with friends. I'd just been kicked out of the Hounds of Winter, the band I'd moved from my home in Los Angeles to form. Fired by email, too, the cowardly bastards. I hurried up Mannett Street toward the pub and venue sign, a black ironclad horse on a white field, flickering in the darkness. I didn't need to see it anyway. Most nights I just followed the muted rumblings of heavy metal rhythms. If all the lights of London went dark, metal would be my Pied Piper. But the street outside the Iron Horse tonight was silent. Didn't matter. I hadn't come for a show. At the door, a woman stepped in front of me. In black knee-high boots, she stood tall enough to look me straight in the eyes. Her dark hair rolled in long waves past a face that even in the pale light looked a creamy pearl. And despite the hot August evening, she wore a charcoal turtleneck sweater over black leggings. Close-fit leather gloves brought it all together, made her look official somehow. I wasn't exactly a stranger to being accosted on back streets. I'd grown up in Westmont, Los Angeles, Death Alley, the Times called it. Crime, violence, drugs, gangs. Still, this felt different. As I started to edge my way past her, she removed a glove and extended her hand to shake. From habit, I did the same. Just before I took her hand, she curled her bare fingers around my wrist. My pulse began to gallop like triplets in an Iron Maiden tune. She had a forceful kind of beauty, to be sure, but it was more than that. Her touch seemed to go deeper, ache a little. Bad as this night had been, I didn't pull away. She held me for a few seconds, then whispered, "What would you be willing to do to escape a life of slavery?" I had no idea what she was talking about, and I didn't really care to. I just needed to get inside. She then turned my hand over and pushed a stone into my palm. "If you wake up, come find me. I might have a job for you." She pulled her glove back on and disappeared into the shadows of Mannett Street. Crazed Hounds fan, maybe? But how could she have already known I'd been kicked out? I held the stone up against the flickering Iron Horse light. It shone a murky red, with a rune or something etched into one side. I sighed, shoved the stone into my jeans pocket, and pushed through the door into the Iron Horse. Just inside, I paused, taking in the scent of cracked leather, the rumble of conversation, and the soft glow of homemade candles burning all around. Henry, the owner, dipped them most every evening, and most nights I joined him. The venue portion of the Iron Horse, through a crimson drape on the right, was still silent. Any other night, I'd have gone in to see why. It was New Music Friday. Henry booked emerging bands on one of his best nights. Ballsy as hell. Instead, I cut left into the pub. Henry was standing at his post behind the bar, drying glasses, his iron gray hair combed straight back. He caught my eye, gave me his easy smile, and motioned me over with his dish rag. I wove toward him past a row of booths filled with other friends and regulars. I didn't stop to say hello. Too much going down. A tapestry of band patches were sewn to the booth's upholstery. Music fans flying their colors. Henry encouraged it. He left a needle and thread and a cigarette tray on every table. The trays held over for when smoking in pubs was legal. The booths had themes, too. 80s hair bands, death metal, grindcore. A few were dedicated to specific artists. Good luck getting a seat at the Deep Purple or Maiden tables. When I got to the bar, I laid my hands flat on the scarred old wood, just to feel grounded for a moment. The scent of Bournemouth longleaf, Henry's pipe tobacco, helped. Even when he wasn't smoking, the smell hung on him like a wise man's cologne. He hiked his stained old apron high on his waist and waited for me to say something, blue eyes none the dimmer for all the laugh lines that hemmed them in. Finally, he drew me a glass of water. I'd never had a taste for alcohol, leaving his rote teetotaler joke alone tonight. "I think I can guess," he said. "Yeah?" He pointed his rag at the corner booth where my friend